A draw for Celtic at Ibrox yesterday then. We spent the whole build-up to this game talking about there only really being two possibilities in terms of the outcome. One, that we show up and show why we're champions and beat Rangers and make this grand statement. And on the other side, they beat us again, more of the same from the previous two derbies. They make it 3 wins in a row. And what actually happened was neither of those. It was a draw. And I guess it kind of leaves us not 100% sure how to feel about the match. I'm sensing some frustration out there, a fair bit of contentment as well. So let's try and address that in today's video and work out how we're feeling after the game, as well as covering a hell of a lot of other stuff. And yeah, I'm absolutely fine today. No hangover at all. To be honest, I only had a few pints yesterday. Had we won the game, it might have been slightly different. But yeah, enjoyed doing the video last night. My first in-pub reaction since the glorious 67 Hail Hail days with Stevie. It was Scott who joined me last night from Turf Bar in the City, the home of the Melbourne #1 Celtic Supporters Club. Big thanks to them for having us along again. That video is linked above if you want a full breakdown of the game. Today I'm going to chat a little bit more about the match, go through some of your comments, go through what Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor have been saying after the game. There's a Rangers statement on some more disappointing but not totally surprising scenes at Ibrox, both before and during the game. And there was awards last night. We had Celtic's awards, we had the PFA awards. So I'm going to cover all of that today. Once again, everyone, this show has been created in affiliation with NordVPN. Don't miss your favourite content, even when travelling. Stay at home virtually by switching your location on NordVPN. If you're going on holiday this summer but want to keep in touch with your favourite live sport or TV show streaming, then NordVPN can make your phone or laptop appear like it's in another country, even when you're not, making it ideal for accessing content while you're away. NordVPN also keeps you safe online with a single click. It's easy to use on a phone or laptop. It's been a total lifesaver for me while I've been in Australia, and it will be for you too. You can get involved with NordVPN as a Celtic AM viewer or listener. Our link, nordvpn.com/Celtic AM, will get you up to 73% off and 3 extra months thrown in as well. There's no risk either with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's nordvpn.com/Celtic AM. And the link's also in the description. Okay, where to begin then? As I say, I've had my sleep. We've managed, a bit like you, to think about the game a bit more. And yeah, I guess I sense a general level of frustration that we were unable to win the game yesterday and kind of put a marker down maybe for next season or even for the rest of this season by beating Rangers. So yeah, a draw leaves everyone feeling a bit meh about everything. And to be honest, I think meh kind of sums up the game. I didn't think it was a particularly great game, especially second half. I felt it did have the feeling of a dead rubber, a game that didn't have too much riding on it. I do think there were positives in the way we played in the game. I thought we had a lot more control of the match than we have in the past couple of derbies. We were able to play through Rangers' press a lot better, which is something Callum McGregor and Brendan Rodgers both touched on after the game, and we'll mention that as well. Also, you know, important I think to mention, we were missing 4 players who would have started the game yesterday. Kasper Schmeichel, Alistair Johnson, Jota, Nicholas Kuhn are all in our best Celtic 11. None of them played in the game yesterday. And yeah, I watched most of the game back this morning, and I do feel that while the game was generally pretty even in terms of chances, and you could maybe even argue Rangers shaded it in terms of the chances in the match, but not by much, I do think that we were the team dictating the play on the most part, certainly from open play. We were controlling the game, getting into some good areas at times, much better areas than the past 2 or even 3 derbies. Felt a bit more like the old days in that we were the team controlling the game. But just that final pass, I think, when we got into good areas, that final cross being overhit, or just things not quite coming off, the amount of chances we had that would just seem to be blocked at the last minute. And yeah, the finishing wasn't really on point either. Adam Maeda had, I think, 4 or 5 chances in the game besides his goal that he didn't finish. So I don't think it's a case of us just rolling up to Ibrox and beating them. I know we like to have a laugh at them, and they're very funny to have a laugh at, and you look at their domestic form and you would look at that and think they're not a particularly good team. I do think they've also shown Rangers at times this season and in previous years as well that on one-off days they can be a tough team to beat, and obviously they've had a fair few results in Europe. So I don't think they're like an awful Rangers team. And I always think a draw at Ibrox is never a bad result, really. So yeah, we'd have wanted to win. I felt a draw was a fair result, and I'm kind of happy enough to just move on from it onto our push to actually win trophies. Having said that, I think one of my issues from the match, and to be honest, the kind of pretty decent sample size of maybe the last 3 or 4 derbies now, is that we continue to be a bit nice against them. And you look at, there's a few of their players, especially the last derby at Celtic Park, and you've got, Czerny's incident with the water bottle, and is it Dujon Sterling posted on Instagram after the game calling our stadium, I can't even remember the word he used, but he didn't like it anyway. And you have Nicholas Raskin basically in every derby just being a real pain and clearly kind of showing us no respect. And you even had guys like Todd Cantwell, remember him, and before this season, again in these games, always just seemed to be a fiery figure. And as much as I don't necessarily want Celtic to be like that, because we kind of laugh at all of those guys I've just mentioned for various reasons, I do think at times that we do lack a bit of nastiness in this fixture. It's only really Callum McGregor you ever see arguing or giving a bit back to one of their players. Only ever really Callum McGregor. It's not anyone else. And that is a little bit of an issue for me in this fixture. I'm not sure if it's a case of our players just feeling they're above that, which maybe you wouldn't blame them because we've been so dominant over Rangers both in this fixture up until recently, and obviously more generally in Scottish football in terms of winning the trophies. Maybe we just feel we're above them a little bit. But like I look at a few examples from yesterday, and you look at the way Vaclav Czerny carried on in the last game at Celtic Park, and without being like Neanderthal with my views on this, you are looking for someone to at least put a challenge into him in the first few minutes. I'm not talking about getting sent off or anything like that, but go and let him know you're there, and let him know you're not going to stand for him, the way he behaved towards the Celtic fans in the last game. And I just felt that he was kind of allowed, without doing anything major in the game. I don't think anyone really put a challenge in on him at any point, and it's similar with Raskin. And then you look at some of their players and you just feel they've got a bit more aggression in the fixture. Now, John CL makes a good point here, saying Kieran Tierney will make a massive difference in this fixture. He will drive us on, and I do agree with that. I think it might just take 1 or 2 more battlers in our team to really make the difference in this fixture. I think we all feel Celtic are a better footballing team than Rangers. That's not up for debate at all. I mean, all of their main chances yesterday, I think most of them come from set pieces, dead balls. We were the team from open play that was looking to dictate the game and actually create chances. And we are a better footballing team, but at times I just think in those recent fixtures, they've been the ones that have been kind of all over us, and it just feels like we have a few good footballers in that team who maybe just lack that bit of aggression needed. So I agree. I think Kieran Tierney will make a massive difference. He's a really good footballer, obviously, but he also has that kind of much needed bite and aggression and desire in this fixture, and that real, do or die attitude, even for a game like yesterday. I think, to be fair, Alistair Johnson has that as well, and I think if you get him fully fit again next season, that will make a difference as well, because up until recently, Alistair Johnson had been a total standout in virtually every derby he'd played. So if you've got Tierney and Johnson in there, McGregor, and maybe you can buy another midfielder. I do think at times we're a little bit light in midfield in terms of that. Comment in here from Cyrodianov Mayo saying we need a Scott Brown equivalent in midfield to put it up them. Not sure where you get one of them these days. Draw at Greyskull after a long season. At least we showed some bottle. We did have 3 nailed on starters out injured. And yeah, 4 wasn't it? And we went behind, so we came back. So yeah, it wasn't all bad at all yesterday. It wasn't all good. I just want a bit more aggression in this fixture, but also maybe that's just a symptom of these last 3 matches not really having anything riding on them, really, apart from the normal bragging rights. In terms of actually winning the league, these matches haven't mattered at all because Rangers have taken 7 points from 9 and they're still 17 points behind us. Okay, going through a few select players. Popgo is saying Sinizalo played well, totally unfazed by the hostile, hate-filled, missile-throwing crowd. More on that later. I thought Sinizalo was pretty assured in virtually everything he did. He made a good early save from the deflected Czerny shot, which I really liked. I thought he moved his feet quickly. Not sure if it was quite dipping under the bar, but he took no chances anyway, did the right thing. He also held on to a Raskin header quite well. Made a save, I think, late on in the game as well from Raskin that might not look like a great save, but I think he used his feet and spread himself quite well. There was also you'll remember, a Cameron Carter-Vickers under-hit back pass that I thought he was really alert to get onto. If he wasn't quite as alert, that was a potential disaster because CCV passed it without even looking. The one kind of blot in his copybook, I guess, and it turned out not to matter, was the disallowed Raskin goal that Rangers score. Should really be keeping that out. And obviously if that's not offside, and it was clearly offside, but if it wasn't, then I think we're all not marking Sinizalo so highly. Having said that, I think generally, really good performance. First derby, he looked assured. He didn't look fazed by the atmosphere, even though their fans were doing their best to get into his head with various things. And good marks for Sinizalo. We've got Gordon Boyd saying, why is Engels still taking corners and free kicks, and he should master the basics before he gives it all the flicks. As I say, Arne Engels is a pretty divisive figure. I thought his set pieces were really good yesterday. I thought he played a number of really good balls in, most notably for Carter-Vickers' header. There was also one, I think, in the first maybe 5-10 minutes of the game that Carter-Vickers nearly gets onto. I think he fouls a defender. So I thought from set pieces, I thought Engels was great. He started the game really well. Probably fair to say faded a bit, but I really don't think he was poor at all. I just think he's been judged at very high standards at the moment, just because of the fee we paid for him. I think in reality he had a good game. I want to see him controlling games more and getting more involved, using his body a bit better as well. But I thought we saw parts of that, especially at the beginning of the game. We've got George Barr saying, shout out to James Forrest, his composure, ability and decisions were spot on today, class act. Yeah, he did offer some real composure in the game, just popping off some nice passes and looked quite threatening in the first half. I guess my one complaint would be just be looking for him to maybe stay on his feet a little bit more. There's a couple of times in the first half where he fell over, and you're not going to get fouls in a derby for that, especially at Ibrox. Maybe you have a chance at Celtic Park. But yeah, I thought he was good generally. Should really have been slipped in by Ida well. I look back at that, and that for me was incredibly frustrating. Who knows if he would have slotted that home. I feel like you might have backed him, James Forrest. He's usually quite a good finisher these days. Michael Kelly, just generally, it was always a dead rubber as we look to the cup final. Job done. We avoided another defeat that would have made for a difficult narrative, so we can build on that for the next one. To be honest, that's kind of how I feel about this fixture. I clearly wanted to win the game, and we didn't do that. But I think we did stop the rot in terms of the last few derbies, including the cup final. Certainly the last two, it really felt like Rangers had our number. I thought the game was very different yesterday. I know they still had chances, but as I say, they're gonna at Ibrox, especially when we're missing 4 key players. But I thought it was much more like ourselves in this fixture in terms of moving the ball, creating chances. Okay, we didn't maybe create loads, but I just think with a bit more quality in the final third, that could very easily have been a Celtic win yesterday. And I think we're going to improve in the summer. I've spoken about a couple of things I'd like to see. The great thing is that Kieran Tierney's coming in. We don't even need to debate that. He'll make a difference in this fixture and every other fixture. And a bit more aggression in this fixture as well. I hope the manager's looking at that. Right, okay, a few other things I want to just cover. Some comments from Rangers spokesperson after a couple of incidents during and before the game. Once again at Ibrox there was a bottle of Buckfast thrown onto the pitch. Once again, not too far away from Vilsinizalo's goal. And there was also a pre-match tifo which read, "Take aim against the rebel scum." I don't really need to offer any thoughts on this. You all know how I feel about this. I know how you all feel. The main thing I need to read out here is a Rangers spokesperson. This is actually coming from Rangers themselves. This tells you all you need to know. Rangers Football Club condemns the actions of the individual who threw a bottle during today's match. This behaviour has no place at our stadium. Steps have already been taken to identify the person responsible, and the club will take the strongest possible action once their identity is confirmed. We also acknowledge that the tifo displayed prior to kick-off crossed a line and was unacceptable. Our approach to supporter displays has always been built on trust, with the responsibility placed on groups to exercise good judgment. We will reflect on how these displays are managed and engage with supporter groups to ensure the right balance of trust, responsibility and oversight is maintained moving forward. Rangers is proud of its passionate fan base, and we all share a duty to protect the standards and reputation of our club. You do look at the issues caused in this derby in recent matches, and virtually all of them have come from the blue side, whether it's players on the pitch doing certain things, inciting violence potentially, or stuff off the pitch like we saw yesterday, like we saw with Arnie Engels the last time we went to Ibrox at the start of the year, like we saw even going a couple of years back with Joe Hart, wasn't it? There was a smash bottle and they were looking for glass in the box that Joe Hart was diving in. Like, ridiculous stuff. The Celtic support aren't perfect in this fixture. I'm not going to say there's never been an incident that, you know, that we shouldn't have some sort of regret over. But you look at the recent fixtures, and if you listed them all, the vast majority are coming from one side of this divide. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. I mean, there's maybe an element of that just being the way some of their fans are, and I think that's obviously pretty true. I also wonder, and I think there's probably an interesting study to be done into this, but I wonder if the fact that we're just so far clear is having some sort of impact on the more trouble coming from that side, both on and off the pitch. I guess a lot of Celtic fans are ever so slightly indifferent towards Rangers at the moment because we're just so far ahead of them, and that's why there's been so much focus in the Champions League this season. I guess for them we are still very much the primary objective every season to try and win the league, even if they fail at that. So yeah, I don't really know what happens from here, to be honest. It seems like every time we go to Ibrox there's an incident with a glass bottle being thrown onto the pitch or being thrown towards the Celtic dugout. And even at Celtic Park now, there's trouble happening from Rangers players. All right, maybe not doing the absolute worst things, but still, as I say, inciting something with spraying stuff or posting about us after the game. Yeah, I guess we have a bit of class, but yeah, it's an interesting kind of thought, the way that they just seem to have so much genuine hatred for us at the moment. And I think generally speaking, a lot of Celtic fans are kind of taking a wee bit of pity on Rangers. On the game then, Callum McGregor reckons the team worked out Rangers' diamond in midfield pretty quickly. We were basically using Greg Taylor and Anthony Ralston to narrow the game and then switch it. McGregor says we had good comfort in the game and that allowed us to get through the pitch quickly. Greg Taylor, as I say, in the first half was just finding so much space. That's what I mean. It just felt a lot different to me, the game yesterday, in terms of like the way we were able to build the game, and I'm glad that I felt like that watching it, and I'm glad to see Callum McGregor bringing up that point as well. Shows that I wasn't just seeing things watching the game. Brendan Rodgers offered a little bit of insight into Kuhn Maeda's situation. Basically, Dyson had been back in Japan, I think all week leading up to the game. He first trained with the team on Saturday, so the day before the game. He'd been back in Japan expecting his wife to give birth to their third child. However, she didn't have it at that point, so he had to come back to Scotland for the game. Not sure if he's going back to Japan this week. Brendan Rodgers has said that if he wants to, he can. I think if he does, then reckon we might not see Dyson for the Hibs game this weekend. I think we might see a few players drop out of things for the next couple of games. Brendan Rodgers kind of more than hinted at that after the game. He says Cameron Carter-Vickers will drop out of things as he's been playing with a bit of a hamstring issue for a wee while. He needs to have an injection early this week, a bit like Alistair Johnson. The hope is that those two will be back and ready for the cup final. Brendan Rodgers says the idea is to get to the cup final in the best possible place with regards to player availability. There's absolutely no doubt now that as much as we built up yesterday's game, everyone's focused on the Scottish Cup final at Celtic. That is the big game we've got, and to be honest, I think every decision that's made, what Brendan Rodgers makes over the next wee period, will be with a view to winning that Scottish Cup final. So I think we're going to see a few different Celtic teams, certainly for the next 2 games. Maybe Trophy Day will be slightly different, and then hopefully when we get to the Scottish Cup final, full team to choose from other than Jota and go for the treble. On Nicholas Kuhn, he missed the game due to a bruise on his knee that he sustained against Dundee United, so hopeful he'll be back for the Hibs game. So yeah, in conclusion, I think everything is fine. Of course, I would have loved to win the game yesterday, but I saw improvement from Celtic in this fixture. I think with a bit more improvement, the game's meaning a bit more. I think that's a huge factor. I know we say, oh, every derby should absolutely matter everything to the team, and I agree with that, obviously. But I think there is also just an element of when you are so far clear, it just feels a little bit different, and you're just probably a little bit off your total maximum level. So I think when we get to next season, things will be different, and I don't have any major fears about Rangers. They're going to be stronger next season. You would think they're going to have a new manager, but we're going to be stronger as well, and have no reason to not to think that Celtic are going to have another dominant year domestically next year. But for now, Rangers will leave you. We certainly won't mention you over the next few months. Definitely won't happen. Enjoy another trophyless season, lads. Right, just to conclude, before I go, awards last night, just a wee rundown of who won what in terms of Celtic's Player of the Year awards. Big night for Kuhn Maeda. He won Men's Player of the Year. He also got Top Goal Scorer and Players Player of the Year. Men's Young Player of the Year was Arnie Engels. Men's Goal of the Season winner was Cameron Carter-Vickers against Kilmarnock just a few weeks ago. Agree with that totally. Women's Player of the Year, Shannon McGregor. Women's Players Player of the Year was Celia Barclay. Women's Goal of the Season was Shannon McGregor. That was a European goal as well. Women's Top Goal Scorer, Saoirse Noonan, in her debut season with the club. Academy Player of the Year was Kyle Ewer. And James Forrest got the Special Recognition Award. Apparently didn't know anything about that. The other awards happening last night with the PFA Scotland. Premiership Player of the Year, again unsurprisingly, won by Kuhn Maeda. Young Player of the Year was won by Lennon Miller. Will he be a Celtic player next season? Manager of the Year, John McGlynn at Falkirk. They will be opponents for Celtic next season. And finally, SWPL Player of the Year was Emma Lawton. So a busy day for the Celtic players, playing the game yesterday, having the event last night. Now a kind of interesting period, not too long to be honest, because the cup final's in, 19 days, but the next 3 games, hopefully get to see some fringe players. Ideally 3 wins. I'm not massively fussed about that. Certainly Trophy Day, you'd like to go off in style, and then we look ahead to the biggest game of the rest of the season, Scottish Cup final, and the chance to win a treble. So, yep. Looking forward to the rest of the season. Appreciate you all tuning in tonight. If you want more chat, please do check out the video from the pub with me and Scott chatting after the game yesterday. I enjoyed recording that. I'd love you to check that out as well. And I will speak to you this time tomorrow.